At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with yours truly. We're doing something a little different today.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Focusing on cybersecurity entrepreneurship and specifically what's happening over in Spain.
Right. And, a lot of people think about like cyber attacks, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone's thinking about how someone can actually build a business, out of all this stuff.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. Our source is an episode of a Spanish radio show called Cyber After Work.
Catchy title.
It is. They interviewed Eduardo Dimonte, the co-founder of Eden Ventures. They basically help cybersecurity startups get off the ground over there.
Nice.
So in this episode, they start by talking about a few cyber attacks that happened recently in Spain.
Oh, yeah, I read about these.
Like the Catalan waste agency.
Oh, yeah.
Hit by ransomware.
Yeah, I see.
Mutua Madrileña, they had a data breach. Apparently, it was because of some problems in their supply chain.
You always hear about that supply chain stuff.
It's everywhere. Yeah, you got to be careful about who you're working with.
And then even the Catholic University of Valencia got hit with ransomware, too.
Students' data.
Students' data. Makes you wonder who's really safe out there these days.
Right. Well, and these are just a few examples from Spain, but, these kinds of attacks, they're happening all the time all over the world.
Yeah, so lots of problems, but that means there's a lot of opportunity for cybersecurity companies, too.
Huge opportunity. Eduardo Dimonte actually talks about how Spain has a ton of big cybersecurity companies and then a bunch of these small startups.
Makes sense.
But he says almost no mid-sized firms.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's like that in-between space is just missing. Do you have any theories on why that might be?
Maybe it's tough to scale up in that environment. Or maybe investors just aren't as interested in that middle ground,
Could be. But for an entrepreneur, that gap is like a gold mine. A huge opportunity to come in and really disrupt things.
Yeah. But, let's be real for a second. Dimonte says being an entrepreneur, and not just in cybersecurity, is tough, right?
Oh, yeah. It's not for the faint of heart.
It's a ton of risk. You got to be willing to work crazy hours, and there's a good chance it might not even work out.
Very true.
So it sounds like you really got to love this stuff to make it work.
You really do.
Yeah.
But, when you're that passionate about cybersecurity, the rewards can be huge.
Yeah.
You're not just building a business. You're potentially protecting people from serious harm.
Okay, so passion is key. Got it. But let's say I'm ready to jump in. I love cybersecurity. I see this gap in Spain. I'm feeling that entrepreneurial spirit. What would Dimonte say is the most important thing for me to keep in mind?
He really emphasizes three main things. First, passion over profits.
I like that.
You can't just be in it for the money. Building a company, it takes so much time, so much energy.
Yeah, you'll burn out.
You will.
Huh.
If you're not truly driven by the problem you're trying to solve,
Yeah.
you're not going to make it.
So you really have to believe in what you're doing.
Absolutely. And then the second piece of advice is that execution beats ideas.
I can see that. Everyone has ideas.
Right. You can come up with a brilliant idea, but turning it into a product or service, actually bringing it to market, that's the hard part.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. And then his third point is really interesting and especially relevant to cybersecurity.
What's that?
Dimonte says you can have a great idea and a fantastic team.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not solving a problem that people are actually willing to pay to have solved, you're going to fail.
Ouch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He actually uses a really good example. Remember those Iridium satellite phones?
I vaguely remember them.
Back in the day, this was like cutting-edge technology. You could call anyone, anywhere in the world from even the most remote locations.
Sounds amazing.
Amazing, right? Problem was, they were crazy expensive, and most people didn't actually need to make calls from the middle of the ocean.
It was a solution looking for a problem.
Kind of, yeah. So they flopped. Huge technological achievement, but no one really needed it.
So you really have to do your research, make sure there's a market for what you're building? Absolutely. It's a good lesson for any entrepreneur, but especially in cybersecurity.
All right, so we've got the problems, we've got the advice. Now, what about the money? What are investors looking for in a cybersecurity startup?
Well, Dimonte actually says that entrepreneurs get too caught up in the whole fundraising thing.
They spend all their time chasing investors.
All their time. And that's a mistake. You have to focus on building your core business first.
Gotta have something to show them.
Exactly. His company, Eden Ventures, helps startups with all that, helps them figure out how to navigate that fundraising landscape.
So what do investors want to see?
They want to see traction, proof that your product is actually solving a problem and that you can make money.
Okay, that makes sense. But what are some specific things that would make a cybersecurity startup stand out to those investors? What are they really looking for?
Dimonte says there are 3 things companies typically look for when they're thinking about acquiring a startup.
3 things. I'm all ears.
Okay, so first, can this startup help us sell more?
Increase sales potential.
Right. Second, can this startup help us save money? Cost reduction strategies.
Got it.
And third, and this one's probably the most obvious, can this startup make us more secure?
Enhanced security capabilities. Makes sense.
Yeah, so, you got to show how you can deliver on at least one of those things. Ideally more than one, right?
Yeah, but I imagine that's pretty tough for a young company to do. How do they really stand out in such a crowded field?
It all comes back to that idea of traction. Investors want to see results. They want to see a growing customer base, positive feedback, ideally revenue coming in.
So it's not just about the idea, it's about proving that the idea works in the real world.
That's the key. Now, are you ready to look at some of the big trends that are shaping the future of cybersecurity?
Absolutely. I want to know what Dimonte thinks is coming next.
All right, let's hear it. What trends does Dimonte think will be big in the future of cybersecurity? So he's really interested in this idea called data absorbability.
Data absorbability, that's a new one.
Basically, it means that companies are collecting tons of data, but they don't really know how to use it effectively for security purposes.
Oh, I see.
They have all this information coming in, but it's overwhelming.
Too much to handle.
Right, like drinking from a fire hose.
So it's not just about having the data. You have to be able to actually do something with it.
Exactly. You need to be able to analyze it, find patterns, and identify potential threats before they become major incidents.
That's where the opportunity is for cybersecurity companies, right?
Absolutely. If you can develop tools that can help companies make sense of all this data,
help them actually use it to improve their security.
that's going to be a huge market.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what's the next trend? What else is Dimonte excited about?
The second one is cyber-industrial security.
Okay, cyber-industrial security, that sounds intense.
So think about it. Critical infrastructure, our power grids, factories, water treatment plants.
Yeah.
It's all becoming more and more reliant on digital systems.
Everything's connected these days.
But a lot of these systems were designed without security in mind.
Makes sense. I mean, they were built to be efficient and reliable, not necessarily to withstand a cyber attack.
Right, and that creates a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm.
It is. You've got critical infrastructure becoming more vulnerable at the same time that attackers are becoming more sophisticated.
Not good.
But that's also where the opportunity lies for entrepreneurs. Imagine if you could develop a security solution specifically for these industrial control systems, something that can bridge the gap between traditional IT security and these operational environments.
That would be huge. Okay, so we've got data absorbability, we've got cyber-industrial security. What's the third trend Dimonte talked about?
This one's all about automation.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about the skills shortage earlier.
Right. There just aren't enough cybersecurity professionals to keep up with all the threats.
Yeah, it feels like we're always playing catch-up.
Exactly. And that's where automation can really help. It can take care of some of those more repetitive, time-consuming tasks that security analysts have to deal with.
Like, what kind of tasks are we talking about?
Things like scanning for vulnerabilities, monitoring network traffic for suspicious activity, even responding to basic security alerts.
So it's like having an extra set of hands.
Or like a digital assistant that never sleeps.
That would be pretty amazing. Give those human analysts a break and let them focus on the things that really require human intelligence.
Exactly. And it's not just about efficiency either.
Oh.
AI-powered automation can actually be better at detecting certain kinds of threats than humans are.
Really?
Yeah, AI can often spot patterns and anomalies that humans might miss.
Wow, so we're talking about machines and humans working together to make the digital world safer.
That's the idea. And that's a future I think we can all get behind.
I know I can. So Dimonte has laid out these 3 big trends. But let's say I'm just starting out as a cybersecurity entrepreneur. Where do I even begin? What are the first steps?
Dimonte really stresses the importance of having a solid business plan.
Not just an idea, but a real plan.
A detailed roadmap. What's your vision? Who's your target market? What are your financial projections?
You've got to think about all that stuff up front.
Absolutely. You're not just building a product, you're building a business.
That's a good point. What else should entrepreneurs keep in mind, especially in those early stages?
Building the right team is critical.
Yeah, you need people with different skills, different perspectives.
Technical expertise, business savvy, marketing know-how, strong leadership. And remember Dimonte's point about passion.
Yeah, passion over profits.
Exactly. You want people who are just as excited about this as you are.
That makes a big difference. Okay, so you've got your plan, you've got your team. What about the money? Fundraising can be tough, right?
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
But Dimonte warns against getting too caught up in the whole fundraising game.
Right. Don't lose sight of what you're actually building.
Exactly. But at the same time, you do need to secure the resources you need to grow. And that often means seeking funding from investors.
It's a balancing act.
It is. And it's really helpful to have experienced mentors or advisors who can guide you through the process.
People who've been there, done that.
Right. They can help you avoid some of the common pitfalls.
So you've got your funding, you've got your team, you've got your plan. Then what?
Then the real work begins. It's time to build your product, get it out there, and start gaining traction in the market.
That's when things get real.
It is. And that's when it becomes even more important to make sure you're solving a problem that people are actually willing to pay for.
Right. You could have the best product in the world, but if nobody needs it,
it's not going to go anywhere. And there's another thing that's really important in the cybersecurity world.
What's that?
Protecting your intellectual property.
Your ideas, your innovations.
Right. Those are your most valuable assets. You need to make sure you have patents, trademarks, all that legal stuff in place.
Yeah, you don't want someone stealing your idea.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of building a brand.
A brand? Does that really matter in cybersecurity?
It matters a lot, especially in such a crowded market. You need to stand out.
Yeah, differentiate your
A strong brand identity helps you do that.
So it's about more than just having a cool logo, right?
It's about your story, your values, the problem you're solving.
It's about connecting with people on an emotional level.
Exactly. And here's the thing about cybersecurity. It's constantly evolving.
New threats, new technologies, new challenges.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can't just sit back and relax.
Always got to be learning and adapting.
Exactly. And that's why Dimonte is so excited about these three trends we talked about: data absorbability, cyber industrial security, and automation.
Those are the areas where he sees the most potential for innovation and growth.
And where entrepreneurs have a real chance to make a difference. Want to dive into each of those trends in a little more detail?
I'm ready when you are. All right, let's dig into these trends. Data absorbability. It sounds like a mouthful, but I get the idea.
Yeah, it's all about making sense of that mountain of data that companies are collecting.
They need to be able to actually use it to protect themselves.
Exactly. Think about it. You're a security analyst.
Mm-hmm.
You're staring at a wall of monitors data streaming in from everywhere.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Right. How do you sift through all of that and find the real threats?
Yeah, it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Except the haystack is on fire and the needle is moving.
Yikes.
So companies need help. They need tools that can analyze this data in real time.
Okay.
Identify patterns, flag potential threats.
Before it's too late.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's a huge opportunity for cybersecurity companies to develop those kinds of solutions.
Solutions that can turn raw data into actual insights that companies can use to protect themselves.
That's the key.
Yeah.
All right, ready to move on to cyber industrial security.
Hit me with it. What's so important about this trend?
So we've got all this critical infrastructure, right?
Power grids, factories, water treatment plants.
All of that. And it's becoming more and more reliant on digital systems.
Which makes it more vulnerable to cyber attacks.
Exactly. And the problem is that a lot of these systems were designed without security in mind.
I mean, they were built to be reliable and efficient, not to defend against hackers.
Right. So we're kind of in a dangerous situation here.
Yeah.
Critical infrastructure is becoming more vulnerable at the same time that attackers are becoming more sophisticated.
So what can we do about it?
Well, this is another area where entrepreneurs can really step up.
Okay.
Imagine developing a security solution that's specifically designed to protect these industrial control systems.
Something that can really bridge that gap between IT security and operational technology.
Exactly. That's a game changer.
All right. And the last trend we talked about was automation. I'm really curious to hear more about this one.
So we know there's a huge shortage of cybersecurity professionals, right?
Not enough people to fight all the bad guys.
Exactly. And that's where automation comes in. It can help us do more with the resources we have.
By taking over some of those repetitive tasks.
Right. Think about things like vulnerability scanning, network monitoring, basic incident response.
Stuff that takes up a lot of time, but doesn't necessarily require a human touch.
Exactly. Automation can handle those things, freeing up human analysts to focus on the more complex and strategic work.
So it's not about replacing humans altogether, it's about making them more effective.
That's the goal. And the really cool thing is that AI-powered automation can often do a better job than humans at certain tasks.
Like what?
Well, AI is really good at detecting patterns and anomalies in data.
So it can spot threats that humans might miss.
Exactly. So we're talking about a future where humans and machines work together to make the digital world a safer place.
I like the sound of that. Dimonte has given us a lot to think about. These 3 trends are definitely worth keeping an eye on.
Absolutely. And remember what we talked about earlier?
Passion, execution, and solving a real problem.
Those are the keys to success in cybersecurity entrepreneurship. But, you don't have to start a company to make a difference in this field.
That's true.
You can stay informed about the latest threats and trends, advocate for stronger security measures in your own organization,
and support companies that are working to make the digital world a safer place.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in this.
Cybersecurity is a team effort. It's not just about the technology, it's about people working together to create a more secure future for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So go out there, explore these trends, and maybe you'll be the one to develop the next big cybersecurity breakthrough.
And maybe we'll have you on the show someday to tell us all about it.
I'd love that.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. Thanks for sharing your insights with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.